Doc, you disintegrated Einstein.
Calm down, Marty. I didn't disintegrate anything. The molecular structure of both Einstein and the car are completely intact.
Few movies feel as perfectly assembled as Back to the Future. The chemistry between the characters, the pacing of the story, the now iconic car, it all seems inevitable, as though the film could never have existed any other way. But the real story behind the making of this beloved 1985 classic is full of last-minute swaps, rejected pitches, and creative gambles that could easily have gone the other way. Here's a closer look at some of the most fascinating things fans still don't fully know about this film, and how close it came to looking completely different. Let's start with the time machine itself, since it's arguably the most recognizable element of the entire franchise. Today, the DeLorean is inseparable from the identity of the movie. That stainless steel body, those gull-wing doors, the trail of fire as it hits 88 miles per hour, it has become one of the most iconic vehicles in film history, right up there with any car ever put on screen. But reportedly, in the earliest stages of development, the time machine wasn't a car at all. Some behind-the-scenes accounts suggest the original concept leaned towards something far less cinematic and far more laboratory-like, a large, stationary contraption that characters would step inside rather than drive. It's an idea that might have worked in a different kind of science fiction story, but it created an obvious problem once the writers thought it through. A time machine that can't move severely limits what you can do with the plot. Doc Brown couldn't exactly will a giant, bulky machine across town to set up a dramatic climax at a lightning-struck clock tower. The filmmakers needed something with mobility, personality, and a bit of built-in danger. A flashy, unusual car solved all three problems simultaneously. It could travel to different locations, it looked strange and futuristic without needing extra effects, and it gave the story a physical object that felt alive, almost like a character in its own right. That single creative pivot ended up shaping the entire visual identity of the franchise. Then there's the fact that Back to the Future almost never got made in the first place, which surprises a lot of people who assume the film was an instant slam dunk pitch. Time travel comedies weren't exactly a proven formula in the early 1980s, and pitching a script that blended science fiction, family drama, and comedy made a lot of studio executives nervous. The tone was difficult to categorize cleanly. The visual effects needed were expected to be costly, and nobody could quite predict whether general audiences would connect with a teenage lead who gets thrown 30 years into the past and accidentally interferes with his own parents' courtship. Reportedly, the project bounced around Hollywood for a while, picking up rejections along the way, before it finally found a home at a major studio, helped in large part by the backing of well-established industry figures who saw potential in the concept where others only saw risk. Without that kind of support and persistence from key people attached to the project, it's entirely possible the film could have stalled out in development limbo and never made it to theaters at all. It's a strange thought, considering how effortlessly successful the finished product turned out to be. One of the most talked about behind-the-scenes stories involves the recasting of the lead role, and it's a detail that still surprises casual fans when they first hear about it. The actor who eventually became inseparable from the role of Marty McFly was the filmmaker's first choice from the very beginning, but he was tied up filming a hit television sitcom at the time, and the show's producers weren't willing to release him from his contract. So production reportedly moved forward with a different actor cast in the lead role, and several weeks of footage were apparently shot before the creative team realized the tone wasn't quite landing the way they had envisioned it. The character needed a very specific blend of comic energy, charm, and lightness, paired with genuine bewilderment at being stuck decades in the past. And by most accounts, the original casting leaned too heavily into a serious, dramatic register that didn't match the film's playful spirit. Eventually, the difficult and expensive decision was made to recast the part partway through production, which is not something studios take lightly. When scheduling finally opened up on the television side, the original first choice stepped into the role, reportedly working an exhausting, borderline unsustainable dual schedule between two productions for months at a time, sleeping only a few hours a night in order to make it all work. It's the kind of grueling, behind-the-scenes commitment that rarely gets discussed in retrospectives, but it directly shaped one of the most beloved and instantly recognizable performances in movie history. That mid-production casting swap didn't just affect the lead role in isolation. It created a ripple effect that touched other parts of the cast as well. One lesser-known thread involves the actress originally set to play the male lead's love interest in the film. Before the role eventually went to the actress most fans remember today, a different young actress had reportedly already been cast in the part and had filmed scenes opposite the original leading man during those first few weeks of production. When the recasting happened and a new actor, noticeably shorter in stature, stepped into the lead role, height and visual balance on screen reportedly became an unexpected factor in decisions about who would stay attached to the project. It's a strange, almost uncomfortable detail about how visual optics can influence casting in ways that have nothing to do with talent or performance quality. The actress who lost the part through no fault of her own didn't let the setback define her career, though. She went on to build a long and varied resume across film and television, eventually becoming a familiar and beloved face to audiences through other high-profile roles in the years that followed. It's a good reminder that a single lost opportunity, even a major one, doesn't have to be the end of a story. The actor who brought Doc Brown to life also has an origin story that's worth revisiting, mostly because it runs completely counter to how essential his performance now feels to the franchise. He was already an established and respected performer by the time the script came his way, known for both serious stage and film work as well as a recognizable, eccentric role on a popular sitcom. According to various behind-the-scenes accounts, his first reaction to the script wasn't overwhelming enthusiasm. The concept reportedly didn't grab him right away, and he apparently set the material aside without giving it a particularly deep look, unsure whether the story or the character were the right fit for where his career was at that point. What ultimately changed his mind, according to these accounts, wasn't just the strength of the story on its own, but the opportunity to collaborate with a director whose creative instincts and ambition he found compelling, even though that director wasn't yet a major industry name. Once he committed to the project, there was no half-measures approach. He fully embraced the wild-haired, excitable, endlessly inventive scientist that audiences have loved for decades, and that performance became the emotional anchor of the entire trilogy, proof that sometimes the material has to be looked at twice before its potential becomes obvious. Cast dynamics behind the scenes weren't always seamless, either, and that's understandable given the disruption of a mid-shoot recasting. With a new leading man stepping into a role that had already been in motion for weeks, some friction among cast members in those early days wouldn't be surprising at all. New energy on set, a compressed shooting schedule, and the pressure of quickly reshooting scenes to stay on track all create real tension. Reportedly, at least one key cast member needed time to warm up to the new dynamic, having built rapport with the previous lead actor and understandably feeling some loyalty toward him. But by most accounts, as filming continued and the new chemistry between cast members developed naturally on screen, that initial tension gave way to genuine mutual respect and admiration. What could have easily remained an awkward, disjointed transition instead turned into one of the most convincing and beloved on-screen ensembles of the decade. Decades later, the film's legacy shows absolutely no signs of fading, and if anything it seems to grow stronger with each passing generation of new viewers discovering it for the first time. In 2025, marking the movie's 40th anniversary, members of the original cast reunited for a nostalgia-filled celebration with fans, swapping stories about the tight filming schedules, the practical effects work, and just how strange it feels for a project made so long ago to still resonate this strongly with modern audiences. The themes at the heart of the story, friendship, courage, and the idea that our individual choices shape the future in ways we can't always predict, clearly haven't lost any of their emotional pull, even 40 years on. What makes Back to the Future such an enduring film isn't just the time travel gimmick or the flashy, fire-trailing car. It's the fact that so many individual pieces of the production almost didn't fall into place at all. A completely different time machine concept, a different leading man, a different supporting cast, a director whose lead actor almost said no. And yet, through a combination of persistence, difficult last-minute decisions, and creative instinct under pressure, everything eventually came together into something that feels timeless and inevitable. For decades later, audiences are still discovering just how close this beloved classic came to looking and feeling completely different.